Welcome home. We are WNST, AM 1570, Taos of Baltimore. We are Baltimore positive, always hoping you're setting a spot on your radio dial. I see the traffic's a little bit more out on 695. You know how I know that? I was in White Marsh on Wednesday for the Maryland Crab Cake Tour. All of it brought to you by our friends at the Maryland Lottery. I had the Back to the Future scratch-offs, had just the greatest conversation ever with Bill Blocker, had a beer, little beer. It wasn't a big one. And Katie, his daughter, and it was just a beautiful day. Nick Stewart, who was running for Baltimore County Executive, came on to talk about all sorts of really important Baltimore County things. If you live in Owings Mills, you live in Catonsville, Dundalk, Middle River, Essex, White Marsh, wherever, Parkville, wherever it may be, and wherever you may be, I left Red Brick Station. I said, Oriole baseball, and they're playing in Minnesota. My dear friend Russ Letra was at the ballpark on Tuesday night, bringing the Orioles no luck, seeing 3 hits and 17 strikeouts. I felt like it had to get better. It was competitive for a while. Luke, I don't know where we go with this, but this is once you start losing, they've caught the bug, and it's hard to stop losing, man.
Yeah, I mean they're spiraling. I mean there's no other way to put it. I mean they've lost four in a row. This is a bad baseball team. We've said it over and over and over. And Mike Elias has done multiple interviews now where he's given the vote of confidence for Brandon Hyde. And look, I mean, this all starts with Mike Elias. I mean, he's the one most responsible for what's going on right now. But I don't know how you look at this club right now and even if you're not going to change the manager, I don't know how you're not looking at your three hitting coaches and the fact that you're 22nd in runs per game with a team that was supposed to be really good in that department. I mean, the pitching, as I've said, is the proverbial D student that's getting Fs, right? I mean, we expected the pitching to not be very good, and it's been horrible. And we know how many pitchers are on the injured list, but I'm sorry. I mean, I can't continue to look at this offense night after night and say that this is remotely acceptable. I mean, you have three hitting coaches, and out of all your young players, the young core, there's exactly one with the arrow pointing up right now. It's Jackson Holiday. Everyone else is either plateaued or never proven themselves or regressed. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. So, I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, they're 9 games under 500. They've got a minus 66 run differential. What more proof do you need to shake things up on some level? And you know me, I'm not someone who's going to casually start throwing out names of guys losing their jobs, but
They're not firing Adley Rutschman. They're not firing Gunnar Henderson. They're not firing Jackson Holiday. They might fire Charlie Morton. I don't know, right? They just hired Kyle Gibson, so they just hired Charlie Morton. We're 5 weeks into the season here, 6 weeks into the season. I, I don't. I mean, if you want to shake things up, I mean, there's nothing. Cade Povich is pitching, right? I mean,
yeah,
I don't. Kyle Gibson is pitching. They've spent more of Mr. Rubenstein's money, and now Mr. Rubenstein's like, oh, hold on, wait. Trading prospects. There'll be no Connor Norby and Kyle Stowers deals outbound now. You'll start thinking about this Mountcastle have any, value to anybody else. I'm just saying, and I don't
sure.
know that won't be the case because he's hitting to whatever 199, Mendoza, whatever it is. Dude, this is stuff to talk about every day. It's not what I want to be talking about.
Yeah.
As much as Katie Griggs may think that, we put a season together. I got a flight for you and me out to San Diego and like San Francisco to see Olio Labor Day. I thought, Luke and we had a good time in Toronto. Well, one of us did. I had the blister, and but this is like baseball's on again. Angelos is dead, right? I mean, team's good. We have all these great picks. We have all these great players. This is, I mean, we're not going to stop speaking about it every day. We're not going to stop covering it every day. We're not going to stop opining on it. But man, there have been some dark times here over 34 years where it wasn't worth discussing in April, let alone discussing in May. And I
Yeah.
don't know what June holds because this is a really, really, really bad season right now. And it feels like a television show I'd turn off, a book I'd stop reading.
Yeah. And unlike so many of those seasons, I mean, so many of those seasons were dead on arrival, right? I mean, so many of those seasons never had
I mean,
expectations.
most of it. I mean, most of it for somebody your age, really.
Sure, but even say 2008, I've used 2018 as my only point of comparison because really nothing else really compares in my lifetime.
1998.
Um,
1998,
yeah,
because of 97. No, that's the only, I thought about this
sure,
too. And then
yeah,
I also thought when Palmeiro was here and they had that one 90-day stretch with Hargrove where they won a little
2005,
bit,
they
right? I mean, they were like, there was hope. I mean, people were like, in June,
2005.
people were
Well,
like, hey, this is the surprise season where they're good. We didn't think they were going to be good, but they were better than we thought they were for 90 days. I mean, dude, we're going back 35 years here.
sure.
I've been on the radio and we're handing out two or three seasons where maybe there was some hope, but nothing like this, dude. Nothing like this. I remember sitting over at Planet Fitness last year with my wife, and I said to her, this is the best team they've ever had. It was this time last year. It was May. It was after the Preakness, but before one Bradish came back, and like it looked like these guys were going to be okay. I said to her, I'm in Oma, and they were bringing Holiday up at that point, and maybe he could be like this, right? I said, this is as good as it gets. And now I'm here 12 months later, like everybody else. I mean, I'm perplexed, the injury bug and all of that, but just players that are supposed to be on one kind of trajectory and they
Yeah.
turn out to be. And I'm not pissing on Matt Wieters. I'm not even pissing on Nick Markakis or whatever, but they just wind up being good, good. And somebody has to be great. Somebody needs to be Eddie Murray. Somebody needs to be Cal Ripken. You need to buy your Jimmy Keys and and you're not growing your Mike Messinas and you're not growing your Ben McDonald's. And there's a great example. Back in the 80s, you stink, you lose all these games, you draft a pitcher, right? I mean, they drafted Ben McDonald. They don't do that anymore. And this is what happens when you have no pitching and the pitching you have and the pitching you bought doesn't work out. I mean, it is like spoilt milk, as we'd say in Dundalk.
I mean, sure, the pitching stinks. What about the offense? I mean, this is what it's built on, man. Like that, you keep talking about the pitching, and look, I get it, right? I mean, they're 28th in ER or runs allowed per game. Charlie Morton.
Well, it's like a cloudy day. It's
But,
demoralizing when you don't have pitching for the hitters
but if
too.
you
But
told
it's no excuse. But when you're losing 7-2 or whatever,
that wasn't the case, you're using examples that don't apply to
then
Wednesday
it was
night's
Tuesday
game.
night. That wasn't Wednesday,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean,
I'm reverting to comedy, just so you know. I'm
I
doing comedy.
understand.
I'm doing Mickey
I
Coachella next
understand.
Tuesday, and I'm
But
practicing getting funny.
I can, look, the pitching, if you had told me in the third week of March that they'd be 28th in, yeah, and I'm looking at runs allowed per game right now, which obviously
Pick a
ERA is.
stat. They're 20 something in
If
everything.
you had told me that, I would say, oh wow, it's probably not going as well as they'd like it to go, but I can't say I'm stunned by that. They're 22nd in runs scored per game. That I'm very surprised by. At some point, I mean, that's what your entire rebuild was based on, was drafting all these hitters and developing all these guys. And like I said, Jackson Holliday is the only one of that group that's trending upward right now. I mean, Adley Rutschman's batting 212. Gunnar Henderson has looked painfully ordinary. Uh, Heston Kjerstad's gotten this golden opportunity to play with Colton Cowser on the IL, and obviously Colton Cowser being out has not helped. I'll acknowledge that. They've had injuries. We've all acknowledged injuries. It's why I wouldn't expect this team to be 22-13 right
By the
now.
way, dude,
But
spot on with you on Tuesday night's broadcast of the previous loss, saying, "Hey, Westberg's not here and Cowser's not here, but Kerstad's here and
right,
Mayo's here, and they wouldn't be here if any of the, like this is opportunity." And this would be where Connor Norby would be stepping in, or Kyle Stowers if they still were here. They're
yeah.
not. They bought it, tried to buy a pitcher, at the deadline. So I mean, you trade one bag of donuts for another bag of bagels. But I'm with you, dude. Like if Kobe Mayo's going to be a ball player, let's go, dude. You're not 19. None of these guys are 19. Rutschman now has a season of ick.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I just so for me, if you're not going to make a change to your coaching staff, and look, I'm not sitting here blaming Cody Ashe and the two other hitting coaches exclusively, right? You know me. I'm not someone that's just going to give the players all the glory when things are going well and just all over the coaches when things going bad. I mean, it's one of the things I really dislike about sports fandom in the modern age is that mindset that it's always the coaches or someone else or the
I can't. I couldn't
officiating's
take
fault.
phone calls on this dude. I
And,
mean, I couldn't do it the first time around.
it's both. It's both. But to your point, you're not going to fire Adley Rutschman. You're not going to fire Gunnar Henderson. You're not going to fire all your young players because I mean that would be completely irrational. But at the same time, what is Cody Ashe and Sherman Johnson and Tommy Joseph bringing to the table right now? And if you want to get and look, that to me is the kind of the bare minimum thing you have to be looking at this point. That's not to say that if someone said they need to move on from their manager and fire Brandon Hyde and bring in an interim or promote Buck Britton and see if that sparks anything here, I'm fine with any of these options, right? Everything has to be on the table at this point because that's how bad this is at this point. There's this team, in terms of what we've actually seen manifest on the field, has shown no redeeming qualities whatsoever. There have been a few players that have played well, few individuals like Ryan O'Hearn, Cedric Mullins until the last 2 weeks, but still overall having a good season.
Cano and
But
Baker have been okay.
sure.
I mean,
Again,
Aiken's been okay.
gave up a home run on Wednesday
I
night, though.
got you,
But yeah, but overall, there is no phase of this baseball team that's playing well. The starting rotation's a disaster. The bullpen over the last 2.5 weeks after a pretty good start has been lousy. The hitting is poor. The defense is poor. The base running is at best meh. Yeah,
situational hitting. Throw that in.
I mean, the situation, man, don't even get me started on the situational hitting or how they're playing against left-handed pitching. But to me, the minimum, and I'll give you a couple examples, and I think I've mentioned this to you. I mean, we have so many of these conversations; they all run together. But I've made mention of Matt Holliday and him helping out Jackson Holliday with a recent adjustment that's really allowed him to start hitting. And
And by the way,
I mean,
Masson's done a nice job with that, showing
sure,
the bat and showing it all, and
sure,
having Palmer explain it, which is awesome.
sure, and I've said it tongue in cheek. Maybe they should make Matt Holliday their hitting coach, but uh, I've used a couple examples with you. I've cited a couple examples of the Seattle Mariners who were and still are an analytics-minded organization with Jerry DiPoto, and they brought in Edgar Martinez late last summer. They started hitting better. They narrowly missed the playoffs, and go look. They've been one of the better offenses in baseball this year with largely not like this drastic change in personnel in terms of their lineup. The Texas Rangers just, their hitting coach from their World Series team departed in the offseason. They replaced him. Didn't work out. They fired him. They brought in Brett Boone. Now, I have no idea if that's going to work out. Let's be clear. I'm
I
not
don't even know what
suggesting.
makes a good hitting coach, right? You know what I mean? I'm not around the game like that, but I knew Rick Down really well. I knew Greg Biagini really well. My dad was very, very Ted Williams science of hitting, nine quad, like the
Sure.
whole deal. So I like talking ball with those guys at a cage was unbelievable in regard to hitting. I mean, I talked to Walt Riniak back, like when he was the hitting coach of the White Sox. He come in here, old gruff dude, and just all of it. But like the modern part of this and the disconnect between what Terry Crowley, right, who I'll see him 3 weeks from now up at Greenmount Station having a crab cake, what Terry Crowley would say about hitting and what some 27-year-old kid that looks like he doesn't shave, who's the hitting coach, has all this science and all the magic and all the analytics and all the probably AI in regard to swing and in regard to everything I see on golf games as well. But they're also secretive about it. I mean, you have the press credential. You tell me. I don't know that they ever give a dissertation on this other than on MLB Network when they go behind the scenes, or a team would go behind the scenes and talk to somebody. But there feels like if I went back, I wouldn't recognize it. Or am I wrong?
I mean, certain elements, yeah. I mean, obviously, these teams use much more technology, much more data. But and in fairness, I want to point this out. Cody Ashe did play in the majors. Tommy Joseph did play in the majors. I mean, these aren't just Ivy League like nerds that never played professional baseball.
Thank you for that, by the
However,
way. That's
yeah,
fair.
I just wanted
More
to
than
point it
fair.
out because I want to be fair here, especially when I'm kind of drilling down on the hitting coaches because, well, we could talk about that. We could talk about Drew French next. We could talk about Brandon Hyde. Again,
Dude,
I'm
yesterday we
I'll
talked
hear
about Cal
anything.
Ripken running the franchise, right? Like,
Sure.
and let me just
But
say
but
this. I'll let you get into your thing, but for 30 years here, when anybody would call, when little Luke would call in 1999 and say, "What's going on with my Orioles?" and it was always the owner. I mean, honestly,
sure.
like I look back through all of it and say, it was the owner. I mean, like it wasn't Mike Hargrove or Mike Flanagan or Jim Beattie or Sid Three. It was just poor ownership. I don't look. The owner's got a bobblehead. They're 10 games under 500. Everybody wants everybody hung right now. Like we're talking about the hitting coaches specifically right now. We can go through all of it, but like I can't blame it on Rubenstein right now. Now it does come down to, hey, we're going to talk about all of this all of a sudden because
Sure.
we didn't talk about managerial decisions when Juan Samuel and Dave Tremblay and Sam Perlazzo were running the team because the owner stunk and everybody knew it, yeah, for 30 years. But now we got this is a real story. This is a real situation where they have all these talented players and they can't even figure out how to hit. Hitters can't figure out how to hit. So I just want to leave it at that. But I wanted to pile on what we talked about 8 minutes ago.
Sure. Sure. And again, this isn't when we're talking about the hitting coaches, this isn't anyone suggesting that's the only problem. There are multiple problems. There are multiple layers to this. Part of it is, yeah, they've been injured, but you're at a point where you're playing such poor baseball that even as Zach Eflin's going to return this weekend in Anaheim, they've already confirmed that. Even as Tyler O'Neill has played a couple games in Norfolk and is expected to rejoin the team in Anaheim, Jordan Westberg shouldn't be too much longer after that. He's already working out at Norfolk, should be starting a rehab assignment. But they've played so poorly that I've already talked about this. I mean, just to be in a position to win 87 or 88 games, which may or may not be good enough for a wild card. I mean, they've got to play like a 95 win team the rest of the way. I mean, even if they start hitting, does anyone really expect them to be able to do that with the state of their pitching? And okay, Eflin coming back's a major win, right? That's a major win, but he's one guy. He's not three or four guys. But to bring it back to the hitting, I mentioned Cody Ashley, Sherman Johnson, both promoted from within. Tommy Joseph was hired away from Seattle. As I mentioned, Seattle made changes late last season, started to hit better, but it was clear they were going in a different direction. But you look at these coaches, and I actually heard a great conversation about this on MLB Now, on MLB Network on Tuesday or Wednesday, and they were kind of getting into this. They're talking about Edgar Martinez, who had never been a hitting coach, but obviously knowing his craft, but also carrying so much clout, right? Carrying so much really meaningful experience as a guy who won batting titles and had amazing numbers and all of that in terms of talking about a Hall of Fame hitter coming into a coaching staff, coming into an organization that still has analytics and all of that, but now maybe you're looking a little more on the human element, psychological side of things to inspire better performance. Again, the Rangers, they just hired Brett Boone. I don't know if that's going to work out, but I will say this. I mean, the Texas Rangers are 2 years removed from winning a World Series, and they just made a change of that nature. Now, it wasn't their hitting coach who was their hitting coach when they won the World Series 2 years ago. He had left in the offseason. I think he's with Atlanta now. But the point is, if you're not going to make any change here, like what message are you trying to send? Either you think everything's right and you're just unlucky, which look, there's been an element of bad luck. Again, you look at the batted ball data for the Orioles would probably indicate, not probably, would indicate that they've hit into some tough luck in some situations. But at some point, production has to matter. At some point, you can't just keep looking at expected stats for months and weeks and all of that and say, oh, well, we're fine. So you tell me then that either you think your coaches are doing a great job and then the players are the problem, which if that's the issue, then boy, this team has way bigger problems than 2025. Let's put it that way. But if it's a case of maybe you need to make some change, and this isn't me sitting here saying that I think Cody Ashley, Sherman Johnson, and Tommy Joseph are incompetent and should never work in baseball again. That's not at all what I'm saying. Sometimes you just have to make changes. Sometimes you just need to bring in a new voice. Sometimes you need to shake things up. Sometimes you need to pivot. Sometimes you need to be introspective and realize, look, maybe we're not quite as smart as we all thought we were as a baseball operations, as a front office, as a coaching staff. and make some changes. Is that going to make everything 100% better? No, probably not. I'd say that probably less likely than more likely that it drastically improves things. But at the same time, to your point, especially when you're looking at the schedule and ownership's looking at this from a big picture standpoint of attendance and fan interest and your brand and selling mass and plus subscriptions and all those different things. And that's not me saying David Rubenstein should be calling Mike Elias said fire the hitting coach. That's not what I'm saying. But if everyone's looking at this in a big picture sense, are you really just going to continue to just bang your head against the wall and hope the results change? Or are you going to make some changes here? And if you're going to make changes, there are only a few things you can do in season. There are only a few things you can do while you're in the midst of, the storm. And that's the coaching staff. And again, I'll hear if Brandon Hyde, right? I mean, but because at this point, what is going so well where you say, man, we don't want to lose that guy. I mean, who can the hitting coaches point to right now as a success story? Ryan O'Hearn's having a good year. Ryan O'Hearn's been pretty good the last few years, though. Uh, Jackson Holiday, but how much of that is what they're doing or what his father looked at? Because his father is a borderline Hall of very good player, at least. But I just look at this, and again, people listening right now, that's not to say that I'm happy with the job Drew French or the assistant pitching coach have done either, but we didn't really have high expectations for the pitching staff. We had very high expectations for this hitting, this lineup, this group of young position players, and they're wildly underperforming at this point in time. I mean, I've said it, I've used the analogy. The pitching is the D student that's getting Fs right now. The hitting is someone you thought was an honors kid and he's got a D plus average at this point. Which one is more alarming to you? I think it's the latter. Other people can continue to dwell on the pitching, and that's fine too. The pitching's unacceptable. Let's be clear, but I put way more of that on Mike Elias to begin with, and certainly their injuries have been, much more stacked up on that side of the ball. But I mean, we can keep watching the same thing over and over and over and hope that it's going to get better. But we've kind of been saying that since last July, haven't we? I mean, that's where this is even more frustrating because it's on the heels of what happened in the second half last year, but it's not getting better. It's getting worse. And that's where you look at this thing and say, how are you not taking a long look at this and saying that you need to make some changes, some coaches, coaching tweaks at the very least. Heck, if you're so determined you don't want to fire someone and make someone a scapegoat, just bring another person in then, right? Bring someone in and you reshuffle responsibilities a little bit. That it's kind of a cop-out way of doing it really if you want to, right? But I mean, I'll take anything at this point to show that there's an awareness here that there's a major problem and that this team, even with some of the things that they can't control, like injuries, is still performing to, underperforming to an unacceptable degree.
Luke Jones spitting facts and truth. The Orioles play an early game on Thursday afternoon, back at it late at night on Friday, late at night on Saturday out in Anaheim. You can find Luke out in Baltimore. Luke, we're doing our thing everywhere and anywhere. All of the pieces we've done all week are up, analyzing Cal Ripken coming in to save the day, analyzing David Rubenstein, analyzing Mike Elias. We do this every single day here. Appreciate all of you following the journey. I just finding this thing falling off in this way and wondering the hitting coach thing we just took on for 15
Sure.
minutes. It's optics, right? I mean, it really is like that really takes the light off of Heston Kjerstad. It really takes the light off of Adley Rutschman. It really takes the light off of how hurt was Gunnar Henderson and where was he? How hurt was Adley Rutschman last year? Where is he now? And also the general vibe of they're are they happy here? What could what's going to get them? Because it feels like a body language issue, and it feels like even when they're laughing at each other and hitting a sprinkler, and Laureano's out there, adjusting his crotch, and they're all laughing. It's like losing is really, really contagious. I've
Sure.
seen this. It's bad. It's bad for young guys that have never experienced it or only experienced it, right? I mean, or had a taste of success like Cedric Mullins, where he's seen the worst of the worst here. So is Mountcastle. They remember Rio Ruiz and Dan Straley and, everything that went on here. But so does Brandon Hyde. You know what I mean? Like this is, and look, man, they get on the bus every night knowing the pitching's not good enough. And that's where I keep coming back to you and saying
Well, then they should
that,
just give up then, because if that's their mindset, then
well, they're not going to do
yeah,
that. But also the optics of like, we're going to just throw heads around here.
yeah,
There is a togetherness that you understand being around
sure,
these sports teams about foxholes and who's in and who's out. And if Elias fires high, then he becomes a guy who wasn't loyal to his guy. And do I want to go work for? I mean, that's the way modern
sure,
jobs work, right? Because it used to be George Steinbrenner and Peter Angelos pissing off people and getting people all riled up, and the back page of the Daily News had to be the Yankees or the Mets. These places are run much more corporately and much more. I mean, Rubenstein's a billionaire. He really does sit at the top of this. Nothing's going to happen without him. I mean, that's where we are now. He's going to get the phone call from. You think Mike Elias runs the place? I mean, I'll hear that. But if Mike Elias wants to fire Brandon Hyde, he got to sit and talk to Papa about that. And Papa's going to have to talk to the board about that. And it's $2 billion now. Like, these people don't operate like that, dude.
yeah,
This is not Peter Angelos on a bender in the middle of the night on the phone with Peter Schmuck or Tom Boswell. This is a different. We're in a different place here, and that guy doesn't know anything about baseball. I promise you the people around him know nothing about baseball. I don't know if Katie Griggs knows anything about baseball. You know what I mean? Like, I really don't know this or not. I don't
yeah.
know what Mark Fine knows about baseball. I don't know what their sales guy who came from the Falcons and foot. Like, the only one around there that knows baseball is Mike Elias. And Angelos always had Rick Dempsey, Mike Flanagan, Jim Palmer. Although I don't think Palmer really relished that role. Brady Anderson wanted that role, got it, and bought in. So, like, I don't know who. There are no old ball players running around Rubenstein other than Cal, which is why Cal's name gets brought up. And you and I got John Maroon sat here in December saying, Cal's not doing 90. Cal's not going to do Mike Elias's job. Not, I mean, it's like the people calling me back in the 90s wanting Johnny Unitas to be the offensive coordinator. It's like, no, 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 no. Like, no, that's not. You're living in a cartoon. That's fantasy land. What's reality is they have a neophyte billionaire owner who expected more than this. He's probably privately pissed off, right? I mean, I
How
guess. I
could he
mean,
not? I would hope so. If he's not, then okay, enjoy your bobblehead, but I hope
well,
you're as
that's
ticked
where we
off as
are.
the
Enjoy
fans
your
are right
bobblehead. I
now.
don't see him throwing friggin' hats out there now. They're going to come back to an empty stadium the rest of the year. It's going to be empty other
Other
than
than
when
when
they
they
give
have
away
giveaways, yeah,
bobbleheads.
yeah,
I mean, that's who they are.
they
Katie Griggs
deserve
doesn't
that.
know that. She takes a job from Seattle, comes here on a flyer on a recruitment assignment to get an all-star game, thinking she's got a good baseball team. Now they all got to go get a shovel. And they've already shat upon me. I ain't here to help them. I'm here to hold them responsible, which I would have been doing anyway. But they're not good enough people for me to do that. So I don't even know. They don't know anything, any of these people. And we're worried about the hitting coach. I'm worried about the thing going ass over Tincups and like them complaining they're not making any money and this was a bad investment. Because it probably was. And they
Yeah.
have a deteriorating television network with ratings and sponsors buying in and people buying in and people coming downtown. And this level of expectation for this team amongst its own base, amongst its own Birdland insiders and people who buy it. I'm an insider, but I'm an outsider. But the people that invested in this, invested in the dream that there's going to be a World Series and Adley Rutschman's a pile diver, they want somebody's head. And I'm hearing you in this segment as saying that. I'm saying, like, I I don't know what to expect. These are all new people. I remember what to expect last time. Hell, last time they only got good once or twice even to talk about a season like this, like literally. So we didn't have these discussions because the ownership
Right.
was so awful and the bar was so low. Now the bar has been raised and I don't know where the floor is. I don't know where the sky is. I mean, I'm disoriented in this because I don't know who would hire the next baseball genius because it probably ain't David Rubenstein. And if the whole thing's broken, were they going to hire a search firm to go get a baseball guy? Are they going to get Cal Ripken? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. The other guy was so screwy in all the things. He went and got Mike Flanagan. And, I mean, he trusted who he trusted. Flanagan was ready to hire Eddie Murray to be the manager. I mean, and then they hired Mazzilli. I mean, they made so many mistakes that this is a critical time. And if you don't trust Mike Elias and you don't trust Brandon Hyde and you don't trust the lieutenants that they've brought in from Seattle and you don't trust your 1-1s and all of these golden eggs, I don't even know who is going to be responsible for putting Humpty Dumpty back on the wall. I really don't know. I mean, that goes for the business too. They hired a woman from Seattle that came in that doesn't want to shake my hand. Like, I don't even know. I had to write a letter about it. I'm getting a lot of feedback on that, but I'm like, I don't even know what to say. If you don't want the people that are here to support the thing, and you think the people that, and look, dude, at the top of all of this, if Rubenstein's upset and he's a billionaire and he doesn't know his ass from his elbow. He made a bobblehead 2 weeks ago. Nobody talked him out of it. He thought it was a good idea. Terrible idea. Now, I haven't met anybody that thinks that's a good idea. That being said, he owns it. He's invested in it. If he's pissed and wants to make changes, he will. I don't think he's going to be like George Steinbrenner. I
No,
think he'll trust what somebody else says about getting a baseball guy in here. But I don't know that that makes it any better either. Because I'm with you, dude. They can't change the players. They just can't. The players are going to play and until they get hurt. And that's what should be troublesome here is that if you don't trust the baseball guy and you're Rubenstein and Arrighetti, and I shook that guy's hand. I mean, Lord knows, I have no idea. But like, if those guys are pissed and they want it to flow down the factory in their line of business that made them billionaires, because they all know more than anybody, ask them, all of them. That kind of change would be without done without any expertise. You know what I mean? Like it used to be,
sure.
like it was for a long time. And what concerns me is everyone has to answer for this. Katie Griggs made promises about how much money they were going to make. The guy they brought in from Atlanta made promises about what he was going to sell in suites and what they were going to do. That's the money side. And I've watched everybody play CYA on that forever. Everybody's covering their ass forever on all of that. Greg Bader's trying to keep his job, keep the network running, get the ads running, get the Royal Farms money, like all of that. And if it was all predicated on the baseball being good. And it's just not you and I as experts, you as an insider, me as an outsider can look at all of this and say, who's going to fix it? Who's the genius? And that's what I've been asking all along because at heart, if you're a billionaire and you bought this and it's effed up, and all you're doing is reading spreadsheets and memos and like the Whistlers reading inner office memos because you don't know anything about baseball. None of them know anything about baseball. So if that's where they are, they look at the standings, they look at the seats, they look at the results, and they say, we're billionaires. We'll find another genius. Let's have a hiring search. Because Mike Elias is John Angelos's guy. They're all John Angelos's guys. This is a disaster inside with cover your ass and pointing fingers. And like we're on the radio talking about it like the hitting coach, the pitching coach, the players, like all of that. I think at an executive level for the amount of debt they have, for where they are financially, for what they're trying to do with rolling out what they're going to do with the left field bleachers and how they're going to fix things and how they're going to make everything better. That's really hard to do when you're 20 games under 500. It really is. And I never thought they would be in this position. And I'm starting to question who's really going to make big decisions because I don't think David Rubenstein came in to do that. I don't think Cal Ripken came in to do that. And I think they've been put as figureheads to do that. And Elias is John Angelos's guy. And when it goes bad in a company like this, and you're the other guy's guy, it becomes very, very easy to say, I'm smarter than this.
Fair enough. And look, I mean, a lot of what you said, as far as him being John Angelos's guy, they've kept plenty of other John Angelos people in the organization. So I don't know if that matters that much to them, to be honest. However, I want again, there's plenty of time for that. They're not, nor should they even be thinking about firing Mike Elias when it's May the 8th, right? Now, if this team loses 105 games and you have conversations with the man who's running baseball ops, if you're the ownership group and you start to have significant doubts, I think, and let me be clear. I would not at all advocate firing Mike Elias. I would give him at least another year, but I need to see what this looks like. I need to see how you're pivoting. I need to see how you're fully recognizing that this isn't the rebuild phase anymore. Like need to be a big boy in terms of like building a contender and shaping a contender and pivoting and making difficult decisions. What I'm presenting, and again, the hitting coaches, that's an entry level kind of move to make, right? That roster moves like, if you DFA Jorge Mateo, right? Not that I think Jorge Mateo, I mean, Jorge Mateo barely plays, but if you're DFAing him, Charlie Morton would be a next level up because he's $15 million, but the $15 million is spent either way, right? So, but you either have moves like that or you have making changes to your coaching staff. And like I said, even if you want to do it in a cop out way and you don't want to embarrass Cody Ashe or Tommy Joseph or Sherman Johnson, then you bring someone in and you make up another title because we all know that baseball has so many different titles for all these different coaches now. I mean, it's really the football mentality that's trickled into baseball with how many coaches they have. But I mean, to me, I mean, a team like the Ravens, and it's a different sport, but obviously has an infrastructure. Say what you want about anything from a personal standpoint, but what they've done football wise has been very, very successful. They've fired position coaches and coordinators on the regular. So if you're Mike Elias and you're sitting here and you say, oh, well, we can't fire our hitting coaches, then okay, if they're so good, then why aren't they getting any results? Right? Because you've told us that all these players are so young players are so promising and talented, and we've all believed that. And in some cases, we've seen them be that. Gunnar Henderson has looked like an MVP candidate at his best. Adley Rutschman, even though it's been quite a while now, has looked like a fringe MVP candidate when he's been at his very best. Jordan Westberg's been an all-star. Go down the list as far as these guys and how promising they are. So
you blame the hitting coaches and you say, well, Mullins is getting it. Ryan O'Hearn's getting it. Look at what we did for Holiday.
Okay, but we can always
dad takes the credit.
but we can
right?
always do this thing. Well, it's something else. It's something else. And you know what happens then when you do that? Nothing gets better. So if that is the mentality, then yeah, I have major concerns about Mike Elias and the direction of this baseball operations. Sometimes you got to break some eggs, right?
Well, we're going to find out, right? I mean, because when you're winning, it's all wine and roses and chocolate, right?
Sure.
I mean, literally, now we're going to find out what kind of owner Mr. Rubenstein is. Patient, he's my guy. He's not John Angelos's guy or Mike Elias and saying, Brandon Hyde, I'm not firing my guy 10 games under 500 in May. I'm not doing it. That's my guy. That I'm sticking with, like I
Then why
sang
isn't your
Tammy
guy getting
Wynette for
better
you
results?
last week,
Yeah.
and the Ravens released Tucker on Monday. So if you want me to sing some Tammy Wynette, but who's going to stand by who and who believes in what, and we're going to find that out because they are absolutely under duress right now. They
Oh,
are
it's
they are
awful.
on fire. The whole thing's on fire from the business level, from the baseball ops, from ownership. To your point, I hope David Rubenstein's pissed. I don't know. He's a billionaire. I mean, it's like watching Bisciotti laugh at Harbaugh and saying, it's live or die for you. It's not for me. You know what I mean? I'm a billionaire. I mean, it's a toy for Rubenstein. He's got a bobblehead.
And again, for me, it's not even at a point where he needs to step in.
I
But
agree with you. I'm not saying
I
he
mean,
has to.
that's the last thing I want to see because again, I don't think we're at that point with Mike Elias, but that's not to say that I'm not down on everything that I mean, I'm down on the entire operation at this point in time. Front office, player development, but because we see these guys thrive in the minor leagues and they get to the majors and some are continuing to look like, it's been a very small sample. Let me be clear,
Lord knows I'm upset with the communications department.
but Kobe Mayo, it's a very small sample again, has looked like he doesn't belong. He's in over his head. But for
How can he
that's
look like he's in over his head? He's King Kong in AAA. You know what I mean, right? This is to your
because we've
point. This
seen
is an instruction thing.
and that's where I start to wonder. Not that your player development is broken to beyond repair or has no redeeming value whatsoever. Far from it. But are you missing something? Did oppose and I'm not smart enough to figure this out because I'm not a major league scout or executive. but this team was thriving, absolutely thriving offensively through the first 3 months last year. And then it changed. Now, it wasn't as bad as it's been this year, the entire final 3 months of the season, but was there an adjustment? Was there something that teams figured out about what makes the Orioles tick offensively that teams have figured out and the Orioles have had no answer for answering back to that, right?
I
We
want
know
to know what their record is with Jordan Westburg in the lineup without him. I want to look that one up. That's a good
and
one.
look, and that's if you're looking for any semblance of hope right now, it is that there is some help coming back. Do I think that Zach Eflin, Jordan Westburg, and Tyler O'Neill are going to, and Andrew Kittredge should be back in the next week or two? Should I would say back? He'll debut after having knee surgery in the spring, and he was the Orioles' prize bullpen acquisition. Uh, those guys should help. Does that mean it's going to save their season? They're already 9 games under 500, and they
And headed toward a dozen.
very, very
Really.
much, very much have pitching deficiencies that even on paper, I just don't see it getting that much better. I think it can get better, but I don't think it's a very high ceiling. For one, it's not just the poor performance, the pitching. And I saw The Athletic did a piece on this, just looking at numbers from the first 6 weeks of the season. They have a stuff issue too. Their pitching isn't very talented. And that's, you keep harping on as our little Abbott and Costello routine here, in a way that doesn't make anyone laugh, makes you want to cry. But
Makes me laugh. You make me
but
laugh.
but but there's not a whole lot of upside to their pitching. There just isn't. I mean, who on their staff right now that's healthy has much upside? Felix Batista, a couple other bullpen arms.
Eflin.
F,
Eflin comes back, gets some
but
six
even but
innings
even
every
but
fifth day.
even
That would be
but that's
helpful.
not like an upside guy in the sense that, like, oh my gosh, he's going to be, Eflin is what he is, right?
Yeah,
On
what
a
you're
good pitch.
asking is they're going to play games next April. Who's on the team next April, and who are
Yeah.
their pitchers? And
But
even if the bats wake up, who are their pitchers? Right,
but
like literally.
but on the offensive side, there's supposed to be all this upside, and yet we're not seeing it. So that's where I'm pointing to the hitting coaches, I'm pointing to the manager, I'm pointing to your player development behind the scenes, your analysts, your advanced scouting. What is going on here? These guys are I don't expect the pitching to be good. I expected the pitching to be below average, and boy, has it been that big time. But no one expected the offense to be this. And I get it. Jordan Westburg's missed time. Colton Cowser's missed time. But as I pointed out to you in that Tuesday lineup, you go top to bottom, 1 through 9. Dylan Carlson was really the only guy there where you'd look at that and say, oh, well, things clearly aren't going the way they want them to because he's in the lineup. Everyone else was either a starter or someone that you have been waiting to kind of kick the door open and say, hey, make a spot for me. Heston Kjerstad, Kobe Mayo, etc. And yet we've seen a team now that scored 3 or fewer runs in 12 of the last 15 games. They've gone 4-11 over that stretch. And they've now scored 2 or less 14 times this season. They're scoring 2 or fewer runs in 40% of their games this year. I mean, that's a bad offense, period. It's not underwhelming. Underwhelming's kind of been the nice way that we've described this. Their offense has been poor. And you can't fire all the young position core, the core players. So yeah, I am looking at the
Well, and
coaching
Hines mixed
staff.
the lineup up, and it's like the
I mean, you gotta try
left-handed
something.
thing. Them just getting their ass kicked by left-handers is unbelievable.
And the numbers with runners in scoring position. And look, I'm not saying this is all Cody Ashley's fault. At the same time, I don't think Cody Ashley is the next Charlie Lau. And if someone wants to say that you need to make a change with Brandon Hyde, I don't think Brandon Hyde is the next Tony La Russa or Tommy Lasorda or Earl Weaver, right? So if you can't even make those kind of decisions, if something needs to change to try to salvage this 2025 season that people are going to end up losing their job anyway if you end up just playing out the string and things don't get better. If you can't even make those decisions, if you're Mike Elias, then yeah, I do question if you're going to be able to pivot and make bigger changes that might need to be made here in terms of getting this team back on track because where this team's gone over the last calendar year is very, very, very concerning. That's the Captain Obvious statement that even if we don't know the answers, we certainly know the problem. We've identified that this thing is going in a really bad direction.
What did Roddy Piper say? What changed the You get the answers. I change the
Just when you think
questions.
you have all the answers, I change the
There,
questions.
see, I get a little Piper spit
I
there.
like that. I like that.
Little old school nasty Nestor for you. Had a great time over at Red Brick Station on Wednesday with my friend Bill Blocker. Had a beer, had a crab cake. He brought me this sandwich. It was as big as my head, and also sent me home with some sandwiches. Our friends at the Maryland Lottery sent us out doing the Maryland Crab Cake Tour. We're going to be next weekend out in Las Vegas at the pool at the Encore with a big leadership thing. You can look it up. It's called themarylandparty.com. My pal Howard Perlow just literally did the show last week, invited me to do the show out there. So I'm going to sit poolside, sipping champagne. Actually, I'll probably just be hydrating with water out there at Sammy Hagar. Maybe a little tequila, who knows? We'll be out in Vegas next week doing the Maryland Crab Cake Tour. And then we'll be back for Fadley's on the 28th. The Cardinals are in town. I don't. I just thought it'd be fun to be there. And there's OTAs with the Ravens later on in the month before we get to Memorial Day as well. And then on the 7th of June, we're going to be back up at Greenmount Station in Hampstead, up in beautiful Carroll County, God's country, as we say, and get a delicious crab cake up there. I might even go next door and bowl a few frames because I like doing that at Greenmount Bowl. Luke will be around all weekend. We'll be up late, up all night like the Boomtown Rats. Friday and Saturday night with the Orioles in Anaheim, California. Orioles circling the drain. I've had some good guests around here, Baltimore Positive. I wish the baseball stuff was a little bit more inspiring and a little bit more uplifting. It's not, but we keep watching. I'm Nestor. He's Luke. We are WNST AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking. Baltimore Positive.